Yes, okay. So, yeah, thank you for inviting me here. I really enjoyed the day, and I'm looking forward to the evening also, and the discussion we will have afterwards. So, my name is Sigrid Sigurjónsdóttir, and I come from Iceland. I worked as a professor of product design at the Icelandic Academy from 2005 until 2012. And I'm going to tell you about the project that I was working on there, which is the Designer and Farmers project, which kind of became like this big project in Iceland, but started as a school project. And then if I have time, I will also tell you about Spark, which is a design space that I opened in Iceland in 2010 and is also related to the academy. But, but yeah, let's start with the Designers and Farmers project. So in 2007, we had this situation in Iceland, which was kind of crazy. And it was the fact that you could put your money in the bank and get 14% interest. Yeah. So it was really like, of course, then everything went down. But what it did to the life in Iceland was that nobody could be bothered to do anything. It was really like awful situation. Like nobody wanted to invest in new businesses. I mean, why? If you could just put the money in the bank, and sit in your home and do nothing. And I was reading this book by Andri Snær, who is now running for president in Iceland, and he's a big environmentalist mainly, but he was writing about the lost opportunities in Iceland, and I was reading this book, and it's called Draumalandið, the Dreamland. Yeah, right, yeah. And he was criticizing, among other things, that you in Iceland, you drive around the island, or you are in Reykjavik, and especially he was criticizing when you drive around the island, and you are maybe passing farms, and you can see that people are growing things, but you cannot buy anything. You have to go to the next petrol station and get a hot dog, and you never know from whom you are buying the meat, and it's all the milk goes into the same company, and it was and I thought, God, this is just crazy. And at the time I had been trying to work also with my students I'm actually a product designer, and we had been trying to work with local companies a lot and with local material, and I thought when I read this book, wow, we can just work with food. And of course there had been this like food design thing going on in, all over the world. And so I thought, okay, so I hired two of my ex-students who were actually interested in developing food and working with food, and their name is Guðfinna and Brynhildur. And we sat down and we came up with this idea, which is such a simple idea. It was just that we would visit with our students 4 farms a year. We would have, the course was like 5 weeks, and the students they would kind of document the facilities in the farm. What is the machinery, what are they producing, what do the farmers want to do, like what is their dream. And the ideas that they came up with, they had to work with this, like you could not have to buy a new machine or something like that. So you just had to work with what was there. And then the students came back with maybe like 20 ideas, and then we chose one idea. I mean, it all took some time, and then in the end they actually took this one idea and made like a good prototype. But they always worked very closely with the farmer. And I'm just going to take you through like 2 samples, because we worked for 3 years, and we worked with all these farms in Iceland. And then I realized it was such a great project. So we applied for a grant, from the government, from the Ministry of Industry, and it was the first. It's a big fund. We got like 30 million Icelandic in total to do this. I don't know how that.
That's very big difference.
Yeah. Anyway, so it was enough money to really do something. So what we could do was that every year we could choose the best project from the course, and actually take it to the market. Then we would hire professional graphic designers, chefs. We were working then with a food research company, so we could actually get a lot of people involved, and we could also pay the students to finish the idea. So during the summer they finished the project, and these are the 4 farms that we actually finished the projects with. And these Engjansgard are actually farms, the ones here, they are actually where the students actually also carried on working with farmers, even if they didn't get any funding or support from the school. So I'm first going to tell you about this project. We worked with a rhubarb farmer in Iceland, and they had been growing rhubarb organically for a long time. Actually, you will meet them. I have a film with them, so you will meet them in a short while. But they had been selling all the all the rhubarb to a jam factory for like almost nothing. So they had to work as teachers and do other stuff. But when we went to meet them, they had actually been building as like a certified kitchen, because they really wanted to have like their own brand and their own. Dorothy is actually from Germany, but she moved to Iceland because she fell in love with Icelandic horses, and then she told me she had not had time to ride a horse for 4 years or something when I met her, because it was so crazy working on other things. And so here are the students who are, I mean, we did actually go and stay and visit the farms and work with them. Here is a sample they did. I mean, we had all kinds of ideas in the beginning, and this was an idea for a drink, a rhubarb drink, and the paper you see around the bottle is made from the leftover of the rhubarb. Like when you've pressed it, you can make this paper. But then, fortunately, we were working with a food research company that told us this was a very dangerous drink because it is so sour and it can really be like damaging. So we abandoned it, and we would have had to use a lot of apple juice or things, with it. So it's good sometimes to work with a professional when you don't really know what you're doing. So we took over. We didn't really have facilities to work with food, so we took over the canteen in the summertime in the school, and that's where these are. And we are just trying all kinds of different things with the rhubarb, all kinds of ideas. In the end, after working with the concept a lot with the rhubarb and the history of the rhubarb in Iceland, it's very much, I don't know if you have the same thing in Sweden, it's very much I don't know if you call it a fruit or a vegetable that you pick from your neighbor's garden and you go and you put it in sugar and eat it like a sweet. So the end result was that we wanted to make a sweet and relate to this kind of childhood memory of the rhubarb. And so that took a little bit of a development with a really nice chef who knows everything about making sweets. And in the end, we actually cast it into a rhubarb. It's a caramel, rhubarb caramel. And it sounds very simple, but we had a big problem with the product. Because it looked always very nice in the evening when we had made it. We made like lots of samples, all kinds of different mixtures. But during the next day, it would always be melted into like a pool of just liquid. And then the food researchers were like, "Whoa, what is this? Why?" And especially our chef was like, he's been making caramels for many, many years. He was like, what is happening here? And he tried again and again, and in the end, the food researchers came back to help us. And they said, oh, it's the acid in the rhubarb that is doing something with the sugar, blah, blah, blah. So then we had to find a solution, and we had been working on this already now for 4 weeks, or, we couldn't stop, but it was not really working. So they actually, in the end, Food Lab, they recommended that we would like dry freeze the rhubarb. So you take all the liquid out of it, so it becomes like a like very dry, and then you can put it in the caramel, and then when you eat it, it becomes alive, and it does a very nice effect because it like pops, you know, like this taste will like pop up in your mouth, like totally different than being part of the caramel. It's more like a small explosions of rhubarb. It's very nice. So that was, and then we, the group designed this logo for the farmers, and this is the packaging. And when you open it, it's very kind of colorful and rhubarby on the inside. And it has become a great hit for this farmer, especially now because we have all these tourists now coming to Iceland, and they want to buy local, you know, products, and so and now it also helped them because there is a lot of competition to get jams and more traditional things into the shops, but the shops really wanted the caramel, so they also took the other products from the farm because now also it got a lot of publicity, and it helped the farmer a lot. So this is one some example. I thought it would be nice if I could show you this film, which is like the hope it works. Yeah, wait a second. Yeah. Okay. It's working. So these are the rhubarb farmers. Can I higher maybe a little bit the volume? Or bara hérna? Já. Nei. Já. Ég sé nefnilega ekkert. Það er ekki með gleraugu.
Afi og amma þau ræktuðu rabarbara og bjuggu hér alla sína ævi. 47 líklega komu pabbi og mamma inn í búið. Síðan að þá tek ég eiginlega við þessu þegar ég 15 ára gamall.
Já, ég heiti Dorothée Lubecki og ég bjó á Löngumýri ásamt Kjartani Ágústssyni, manni mínum, og Sunnu Maríu, dóttur okkar. Og við erum að framleiða rabarbara karamellur. Ef ég á að segja fyrir mitt leyti, ég held ég væri ekki mjög vel sett ef ég væri mikið sælgeri. Ég get alveg látað mig nægja að smakka bara til þess að vera með svona gæðapröfu og mér finnst hún alltaf góð, en ég get alveg látað hana að vera sko það fyrir utan. En mér finnst hún alltaf góð og sérstaklega þegar hún er alveg nýlöguð, þá er hún alltaf alveg æði. Ástæða fyrir því að okkur hefur gengið vel að selja hana er ekki síst að þetta er hannað alla leið í gegn. Það var ekki stoppað þegar við vorum komin hálfa leið, heldur en var dæmið hugsað til endans og þetta passar allt saman. Og þetta held ég sé galdurinn í þessu öllu. Það sem til dæmis var svo merkilegt með þessa karamellu, hugmyndin var til að snemma í ferlinu, en þetta ætlaði aldrei að ganga. En svo komu bakararnir inn í dæmið, listamennirnir sagði þetta skal, allir sögðu þetta skal og svo var bara lagst á þetta, hvernig leysum við vandann? Og ég hef alltaf sagt að þetta verkefni stefnumót Listaháskólans við bændur er besta verkefni sem ég hef verið þáttakandi í og sem ég hef séð hérna á landinu. Og ekki síst út af því að þessi nálgun á þróuninni, hún er þverfaglegt. Þetta eru ekki bara bændur og listamenn sem eru að tala saman í þessu verkefni, heldur en fáum við þarna fagráðgjöf og við höfum fengið að vera með, en við höfum ekki þurft að bera allan þungan. Og svo vorum við með okkar eigin hugmyndir sultur og sírup og ýmislegt sem hefur síðan í raun bæst við og við höfum verið svo lánsöm að fá aðstoð af teyminu úr háskólanum til að þróa í raun límmiða á þessa vöru líka og ef við horfum núna á það sem við erum með, þá er þetta bara ein heild.
En þetta er gaman og ágætt svona stundum bara að skreppa út í rabarbarahús og finna svona ilminn og vera þar í hlýju og rólegheitum að búa til karamellu.
Og þetta hefði aldrei orðin til nema út af þessu frábæra samstæði sem okkur bauðst þáttöku í.
So I thought it would be nice that you would meet some of the people, and I think I can just carry on from here. Yeah. So I'm just going to show you a few slides from and just tell you very quickly about some other projects that we did. We worked with a farmer. This is like the where is it? Maybe it's something. Okay, thank you. Sorry. Okay, so yeah, so we worked with another farmer, which was a real challenge. This is a farmer that works in. They have family, and it's the most remote farm in Iceland called Möðrudalur, and they produce lamb meat, and they actually produce the best lamb meat in Iceland. They don't give them any like cabbage, or it's all grown from the mountain, you know, so they just eat the herbs, and they're absolutely fantastic meat. And actually what our students, I forgot to tell you, are supposed to, their job is to go and get to know the farmer and get to know the material he's working with, but they are supposed to increase the value of his production, you know, of what he's doing. And that was kind of easy with the rhubarb because they were getting such a bad value from what they were doing. But this was much more a challenge because this guy is selling the most expensive meat in Iceland. So I was thinking, how are they, you know, going to do this? But the thing is that I don't have any connection to the farm. I have now a very good connection to the farm society in Iceland. But when I started, I didn't know any farmer. So we had to do a little bit of, what do you call it? You know, calling around and asking about people, spying. We had to do a little bit of spying. And we called the Farmers Society, and they really, you know, recommended these people that we then in the end, you know, ended up working with. And they are actually running also a restaurant there at Möðrudalur. So after some work, I mean, and a lot of kind of difficult project, the students realized that the farmers, they were leaving in the slaughterhouse all the inners, you know, from the sheep. They didn't use it at all. So that was something that they could really work with. And we have a really awful kind of dish in Iceland made from the inners of the meat that everybody knows from when they were a child, but nobody really, well, yes, people are still eating it, but for some reason, we have done nothing with it, you know. I mean, we have not even changed it at all. So what they did was that they took this old recipe of like blood pudding, and I don't know, but there's like 2 types of blood pudding. And they, with the chef, which is like one of the best chefs in Iceland, they took out a lot of the fat. I mean, you need to have some fat in it, but they took out a lot of the fat, and they put in herbs. Here they are picking herbs with a farmer, and vegetables. And they cooked it in a different way. Like instead of boiling it, they cooked it in an oven, and they made it not. I mean, it used to be cooked in the stomach. You know, you would fill the stomach with it, but they cooked it in a form of you will see it later, of a cake. So we call it like a blood pudding cake, which some people cannot stand this word, but we thought it was kind of funny. And they now, and here we are working with blood, and we did hundreds and hundreds of tests. And the main problem here was that all the herbs, it tasted really good. I mean, like totally good, but it looked really awful. It looked green from all the herbs. So it was like, you know, so we had to spend a lot of time trying to make it look more kind of brown, and in the end, the chef helped us with this. And here they designed how they should be, you know, displayed. And here we are introducing it. So this is in 2008, I think, and we are introducing it to the kind of the tourist board in Iceland. But and then this dish became available in the restaurant, and it mainly became popular with the French people, who really like it a lot. But so now they are serving it with. I mean, we would never drink like with this old dish. I mean, we would never drink red wine, and they made some really nice potato, you know, what do you call it, stöppu? I don't know what you call it. And yeah, so so the whole kind of dinner was designed, you know, also with plates and everything. So yeah, and here we are actually moving away the blood pudding experience and moving to the caramel. You know, it was like a little bit of a theater piece. And I thought maybe it would be interesting for you to see this. I mean, it's in Icelandic, but there is English. Well, I can translate it. It's just a very important part of the work is to frame the project and to think about so we do this triangle, to think about the base of actually this is the next project I'm going to show to you. So the base of the product and the farm that you're working with, the core, and the like the speciality. So here you have like handmade, trust, adventurous, family orientated, and kind of love, kind of made with love. And here you have optimism, play, and tasty. And there you have mjólkursæla, which we called like dairy ecstasy. We wanted to make with this farmer something that was kind of irresistibly good. He's making skyr, among other things, and it was kind of I mean, these are the first kind of ideas of a sweet, but we had all kinds of ideas. We had because he has a lot of extra milk. Yeah, he has a lot of extra milk. And an idea that we went on for a long time were milk baths to offer people, and the farmer really liked that a lot. But in the end, we made these sweets because it was kind of easier. And these were the first. I'll go through this very quickly. These were the first that I liked a lot. They are like utters, you know, and they are really great to pick up. And they are chocolate with skyr, which is an Icelandic dairy product inside. But then it was much too complicated for the farmer and the people who were working with him to make it. So in the end, it turned out just like a one utter, and he also got a logo, which was kind of like this soft, tasty, kind of milky, creamy logo, which he uses, and this is the product. And we wanted also to really have this feeling that you're getting a sweet, you know, when you open it. So we would like the sound of this paper, and it was all kind of thought through, like totally. And this is the display, and this is how you can buy it as a gift, you know, with 6 And we introduced it at the Design March in Reykjavik many years ago. And then I'm going to skip this project. I just want to tell you just the last thing with the Farmers Project is that first of all we got this grant from the government, which is now supporting more and more design projects, which is so great. And then another thing that happened was that our the food research company that we were working with, they realized that there was a big problem with the farmers community in Iceland, that it's so expensive to build a certified kitchen. So they have now built 3 certified kitchens around the island that you can rent, because you don't have to use it every day, you can just rent it. So there were things that, and also the people who are working with us, the chefs, they have now left their companies and started their own chocolate company, and they're working very closely with designers. And so there are so many things that happened, even if this was just one caramel or one, it really had an effect on a lot of people, and made also people in Iceland think about the possibility of farming. And maybe we can discuss it later, because I think, in my opinion, there is a really high tax on farming products, imported farming products in Iceland. And I think it's bad. I mean, they think they're helping the Icelandic farmers, but it made the Icelandic farmers not have to prove anything. I mean, they were making like not very good or exciting. I mean, there was like nothing happening. So I think it's something to talk about also, to totally isolate, and we cannot really import cheeses from other places. I mean, you have to pay like 10 times the price or something, and it means that the Icelandic producer can just produce whatever, they don't have to compete with any good, so it's difficult a little bit. Even if I support and want to support local production, it's a difficult, it's a question. I put a question mark if it's a good thing or not. Okay, so this is just like 2 minutes, I'll tell you. So this is a space that I run in Reykjavik. I have been running it for 6 years, but I have actually just closed it 4 weeks ago, because the rent in Reykjavik has gone up 200% for the past 6 years. And that's something that it has to do with so many tourists coming, and the city is totally changing, and we need to find just another area really for places that cannot pay the rent that the bars and souvenir shops and places like this are at the moment. But what happened is that when I was working at the academy, I was just all around me were projects that were good projects that had a lot of potential, but they were just stuck in the academy, and they were just stuck there as good prototypes, or just as a presentation, but they had a lot of potential, and this drove me crazy. So I decided to rent this place, which was already a gallery before, so I didn't really have to do a lot. And then we introduced one new design project every 3 months. And they're like food projects, perfume projects, graphic design, product design, all kinds of projects. And I'm just gonna, because we're talking about, and they're all local projects. And this is Spark. And it has been also become like a meeting point for the design community and artists. And it was a very kind of lively and great place. And I'm just going to show you this. For example, this was one exhibition. It was a graduation project from the Arts Academy, and it's a fishbone model making kit. And so we introduced this project. I mean, it's also a typical thing. It was a graduation project, but it was not finished. It was a good prototype, but they needed to develop the method of cleaning the bones and just finish it. And Spark was very much about taking things and finishing them.
For those of you who saw the exhibition Century of the Child a couple years ago?
Yeah. So this has now traveled all over, and we like food a lot, so we always have food that kind of is inspired by the projects that we are exhibiting. And these are the work by Róshildur, but actually you can just make your own, and here are all the bones. And we had lots of architects from from London. I don't know why, but they would all pick up these bones and they would say, "Oh, is this 3D printed?" And we were like, "No, these are fish bones." But they look very much like. And then you can just make whatever you like out of the box. And we even put it on the Christmas tree. These are the bones from the, spine, and they are perfect for the candles. We actually loved this, me and Auður, who was working with me. And yeah, then this is Brynjar, who was also my student, and I always loved his work a lot, so we decided to do an exhibition. He works a lot with the harbor in Iceland. And we were actually going to complete his graduation project, which was furniture, but it was so expensive, so we thought, okay, we will have to do something that would be a little bit cheaper, something that we could actually sell in the gallery. So he decided to do also some sticks, but in the end, his project became only sticks. But that was also, but now he won the prize as the best designer of the year in Switzerland this year. And he's doing really well. He's showing now his furniture in Paris, and I like this photo because of the sticks. His father took this photo on the way to the opening. And but I'm not going to go into sticks. I could talk about sticks forever. And this is one of his furniture. And this is one of his carpets. And yeah, I don't really have time to talk about this project, but we'll leave it there. Train. Yeah. Okay.